I think we're ready to go now. So, welcome everyone. Talila's just got a cup of coffee and we're all ready to go. Thank you for joining us on what is our fifth session of the Future Reading Accounting Firms series, presented by Boma and the back room, and welcoming our special guest, Emple, which you'll hear a bit more about in a few minutes. So I'm in charge, a bit of a swap around this time round. Normally Charles is doing this job, but I'm doing the intros and a wee bit of the housekeeping. So the first thing to let you guys know that this session will be recorded. Please put any questions into the Q&A box. We'll be answering them at the end. And just before I hand over to everyone, and so we can all have a chat, I just want to let you, if you could let me know that if you can hear us, if everything's okay. And also to let you know that we're going to have a poll later in the webinar, so keep an eye out for that. And intros. So for me, Scott Findlay, founder and director or co-founder of the Backroom, ex-accountant, still got my CA, I'm hanging in there. But today I really don't get to do much. I just sit back and listen to these specialists talk about collaborate to grow. So it's all about partnerships and marketing. So we've got some fantastic people. Obviously, Charles Clark from Boma. And even in our accounting days, back in the day, we used Boma, and fantastic tool. And you've seen it through the sessions, what it can do for you. I'm just 100% that every firm should be using this just to save their time. And our special guest is Talila Kroy, who who is co-founder of Emple and M Partner. And look, we've worked closely with Talila at the back room, Wayne and I, and anything about partnerships, and of course sales as well, Talila we initially helped us with. But today she is going to be talking about partnerships. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, talk a wee bit about themselves. So I'll pass you on to Charles probably first.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. Look, you've probably met me before. I'm co-founder and marketing director of Boma. And I'm only saying slightly more than Scott in this session because really the star of the show is Talila. So I'll be chiming in here and there, but mostly we're here to learn, I suppose, about the benefits of partnerships for accounting firms. So Talila, I'll leave it to you to get started and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thank you very, very much, guys. It's an honor to be here. Love the work of the back room, and it's been wonderful to do something in conjunction with Boma that I know TBR has used so much and so consistently. Quick context on me. I've spent 30 years plus in sales and marketing. The last 10 years deeply focused on partnerships. We've helped over 100 firms build partnership-led growth. Right now, I'm running a partner cohort specifically with accounting firms and financial planners. Every single one of them, I might add, came through a partner referral, not through advertising, and that's the world I live in. And what we're going to unpack today is partnerships in the context of marketing, because that is so incredibly powerful. And really, we want to. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. You go, Talila.
We're going to cover these key areas, which is why partnerships, why are they so powerful? What's the big deal about them? And then what are the three things that make them work effectively? And give you a plan that you can actually take away and start to use, because there's no point learning something, you've got to put it into action. Anything you'd add, Charles, to that?
I was just going to say that yes, the strategy and methodology is going to come all from Talila, and Scott and I will chime in, I suppose, on the technology, on the execution side of things.
Yes, but I'll hand over to you for an incredible stat that you found here, Charles, because I think this is it's a stunner.
Thanks. So look, I was in doing the research for this session, I came across the stat, and it's from the SMB Navigator report, which came out early last year. And they surveyed over 500 Aussie SMBs and 400 accounting firms. And you can see the headline number there, that nearly 60% of clients come through referrals. So understanding that referrals are still one of the biggest channels out there. The same research also found that only 38% of clients are actually asking their clients for referrals. And when they spoke to those clients, nearly 80%, so 78% have saying they actually haven't referred their accountant in the past year. So we know the channel works, it's just not really being activated or managed. So there's no strategy, there's no consistency, and most firms, if they are doing anything around referrals and partnerships more by accident, not by design. And so the sort of the whole purpose of today is to understand how this can be, I suppose, put into a system and a process, and it can be done, to have that consistency and really open up what is a really fantastic channel, but something that the research says has not really been utilized to its full extent.
Yes, and really, if you stop to think about that, more than half of your business is coming to you through referrals if you're an accounting firm. I'm curious to know if that resonates with the people that are listening today. I know we've got quite a lot of people here today. What's interesting is that the Harvard Business Review over in the US puts that even higher. Their number is actually that in B2B world, 86% start with a referral. And so this number is actually even modest compared to that. But whichever number you trust, the majority of your growth does come from people who've already heard about you from someone they trust, because accounting is something that's too important to just see one marketing message or some Facebook ad and then make a decision. People want to feel that comfort of knowing that this person is trusted. And that's why it makes it so powerful. And the clients are different too. We'll go into that, but they convert faster, they spend more, they stay longer. They're not there to price shop. But the catch is most firms are doing this by accident, not by design. They don't have a leads problem. They have a systems problem, a failure to actually capitalize on the referral opportunities that do surround them. So let's just talk about what is a partnership, because that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We're just going to keep it simple and say when it's two complementary businesses or organizations that are working together to serve the same client better than either could alone, and grow each other's business as a result. So it's a lot more than referrals that are involved in this. People generally think of referrals, but there's so much more that you can do. And we'll get into that shortly. And a quick example, I suppose. One example is this particular webinar. You have 3 partners here who are all adding specialist expertise to you right now. Each of us are providing you with more value together than we could in silo. But we have a client, for example, we have an accountant, a bookkeeper, and a law firm who have a package that they present to the world together. And you know yourself, Scott, there's nothing more annoying than when you go to an accountant and they tell you one thing, and you go to a lawyer and they tell you something else. So it's that complementary working together that makes 1 + 1 = 3 for the client.
Yep, absolutely, Talila. And we always talk about trusted advisors as well. And it's just even more powerful for your clients when you can sort of combine together like that.
Exactly. What the reason we did the accounting, why we're doing the accounting and advisory finance partner suitcase is because accountants are trusted advisors. They are perfectly placed to run this strategy better than anyone. Why this matters now, I think I'll hand to you, Charles, because you know a lot about the latest data, but I will add that I know that from our own clients, we've got one law firm that, he was on page 1 of the SEO and spent thousands to get there. And suddenly he's on page 600 or something because of the change that's happening with AEO. We've had a lot of clients talking about how their marketing has been declining. A lot of that's because of the rise of AI. And there's, I know, 50% of bots online, particularly LinkedIn, things like that. They're not even real people. And this is declining trust in cold outreach. But Charles, you probably have much more up-to-date data on all of that.
Yeah, no, but look, I think you're spot on. And the point about sort of the rise of AI, it really is reshaping how people search and find information. And I think you may have heard in the past that you wanted to get someone to your website with as fewer clicks as possible. But the latest information coming out is that nearly 60% of Google searches now end up without a single click. So if you search for something in Google, and then the AI results will come up, and they actually get the results on the answer page, and they never actually visit your website. And as a result of this, the drop off in visitors that B2B websites are getting in terms of traffic is pretty massive. And KEO marketing found that between 2024 and 25, it was up to 73% of these websites lost traffic, and the average decline was 34%. So a pretty big change, and it's kind of becoming a structural shift. I don't think AI is going to, now it's here, it's not going to go anywhere. And then you add to the fact that paid advertising costs are climbing. So LinkedIn CPCs are increasing 8 to 10% a year, every year, the last couple of years. Google's non-branded search cost per clicks are up 30%. So you're basically paying more to reach fewer people who, even when you do reach them, are less likely to click. And if you
Interesting.
thought, well, that's okay because I can just do cold outreach on emails and LinkedIn messages to people who may not have heard of you. Look, everyone's doing that. It's saturated. And again, as Talila said, if you don't have that sort of that trust level already, you're basically shouting into the void. So I think, and I will make this point later on, is that these channels, they're not dead by any means. There are ways that you can capitalize on them, but it means that, if you're only relying on them, then you're working harder for yes. So the point and what really partnership marketing is about is going away from buying attention to that earning trust side of things. And that's what Talila is so good at unpacking.
Absolutely right. And all of those add up to people need to take action, and firms need to think to themselves, what's the fastest and smartest way to get top quality clients, good fit clients. And the firms that win do lean into trust, not reach. It's all about trust. And there's some interesting official data on partnerships. It's been found that 30% higher conversion comes about from the average referral lead. So you get a lead through marketing versus referral, the conversion is higher. There's a market revenue growth for firms that have really harnessed their referral channels, both partnerships and clients, and 16% higher lifetime value from referred clients. Now, even though that sounds pretty impressive, the actual empirical data that I get all the time working with my clients is even a lot more than that. Official numbers may tell that story, but what we're seeing is a lot of cold marketing is converting at something like 1 to 5%. Even good warm funnels, which have lots of, things in them and lots of ways of warming things up, are below 25%. Partnership marketing is converting at 50%, 80%, sometimes even higher. That might sound impossible, but really it's because trust is transferred. It's just so easy. For example, for ourselves, a couple of years ago, we ran a LinkedIn webinar. We had about 54 people that showed up. Nobody booked a meeting. We had 3 or 4 people who contact us later with a little bit of a message, and a few people that took our downloadable. We ran that same event with a partner. They only had 12 people show up and 6 of them booked a meeting. And that's the difference. It's really the quality of the people are perfect fit for you because you've chosen the right partner, and then they come with trust. So they're willing to take the step and help themselves with what you have to offer. And I also think that it's important to say that we have in our partnership case last year, we had quite a few marketers, and they were saying the same thing, that they had much, much higher conversion rates through partnership marketing than through cold outreach. So let's look at why partnerships often or sometimes can underperform, because if partnerships are so great and they're so easy to harness and they're everywhere, referral opportunity, why isn't everybody doing this? What's the situation? Why do so many people feel like referrals and partnerships are out of their control? I've seen a number of reasons for this. Most of it is they don't have any kind of strategy. Nobody's owning that. They're not really clear on what they offer the partners or the partners' clients, and there's no consistency about how they handle the people that are referring to them or that they're referring to. And so everything stays informal and reactive. And, if it's not designed, it won't deliver. It's as simple as that. It's like trying to build a house without a plan. It is what it is. They get the occasional referral from here, there, and everywhere. It gives them a lot of work, but they're not harnessing it. It's like the wind. Anything that either of you would add to that, Charles or Scott, from your experience? All right, I'll move forward then. Not put them into awkward positions.
No, I was just struggling to unmute myself to Look, simply, I reckon one of the reasons why they don't work is firms are not prepared to put effort into it, and to realize that you do sometimes have to spend a bit of money on it and get someone in to help you organize yourself. Like, essentially even when we had our accounting firm, I wish we had brought a firm in like yourself, Talila, for ourselves. If you haven't got the expertise, you've got to bring it in yourself, and if you know it works. And they'll
And added to that, Scott, you need to have the time to do that. So you need to
yes.
got rid of your low value activity. There's no more high value activity than a partnership. I always think of it like this: the partnership's like planting a tree. It'll give you endless apples, apple after apple after apple. Whereas when you're just doing direct marketing, it's more like fishing, just one fish at a time. And the minute you turn it off, all the fish are gone. So you need the time, don't you, Scott?
And typically in accounting firms, um, and which we'll touch on later, like you just haven't got that capacity, or that bandwidth to have someone to do that. So that's a massive factor. Everyone's got their business, everyone might have their office manager or reception, and they'll throw them these jobs to do, and they're not really, they might have the expertise to do it, but they haven't got the time to spend on it. And hence, obviously that's when you can look at something, you can look at like us to free up their capacity to do that. But I'll touch on that later on.
And I think it's spot on. We do have a little bit more on that because it's very important. I think also we should mention that whilst there's no shortage of people to partner with and firms to partner with and organisations, one thing we don't want to be in is a position of not putting the client first. And one of the beefs I might have with something like B&I is if they're pressuring you to, for example, refer, you want to refer, always put the client first, right? We're only going to offer things to our clients that are going to make their lives better and are going to complement the solution or the outcome that we're giving. And that's why so many accountants are partners with law firms and financial planners. And if they don't offer it internally, bookkeepers and bankers and mortgage brokers, because their clients need those solutions and they need to be able to provide the right and the good ones. I would be very surprised if every accounting firm in this room wouldn't have several of these already in their ecosystem or network. What many of them haven't done is built out their complete ecosystem and then made the most of it. And Charles, as you had noted, another one is community, like industry bodies. That's a really, really good source of opportunity right there. I think you mentioned that when we were talking about this.
And I think I've definitely, the firms I've spoken to who live in more rural settings, so not sort of like the big cities where you have a lot of, you have lots of mortgage brokers and bankers and all the rest of it, but on the smaller side of the you're around in Australia, there are plenty of local, it might be a fruit pickers association or an agricultural one, reach out to those because you can bet that those, their members are dying for some advice and someone to come and ask some of those questions that maybe they haven't felt they can ask their own accountant, or they just have never had the opportunity to sort of be in a group where they can, share and discuss some of the issues which you can help them with.
And if you're offering value to those associations' clients, they'll be very, very happy to market you often for free. Partner activities. This is one where we want to really stretch everyone's minds to go, it's not just about referring people. It's really about, there are things you can do together, joint offers, joint ventures, competitive advantages that you can take by offering the client a better or more full solution. But above all, there's also partnership marketing, and that is such a cool space because whatever works out there in direct marketing works 10x in partnership marketing. Why? Because those people already know your partner, there's trust, and because they're already a fit if you've chosen the right partner. And we really want to talk about and expand your thinking about what could be done. Partnership marketing done right puts your message in front of dozens, sometimes hundreds of pre-trusted clients in a single campaign. I also want to just take one step to talk about what partnerships are and what they can do. Many of the firms that we've come across are what we'd call reactive in their partnerships. What does that mean? Okay, you're an accounting firm and someone says, do you know a really good estate lawyer? Oh, yes, I do. Go and speak to John. Here's his details. That's very reactive. John can never know when he's going to get anything from you. He may get 2 in a year. He might get 20. It all depends on how many people need ask the question. A proactive approach is more where you know that some of your clients have a specific need, and you are looking to make sure that need is fulfilled so that it doesn't affect their outcomes, so that they get better outcomes and you get better outcomes, basically, and the partner also gets work. So it's always a win-win-win. And that's where you actually can become a bit more structured about how often this happens. And then you've got your embedded partners, where partners are actually built into your process. Like we have a financial planner who's built into the program of a couple of business coaches. He offers his solution within the context of theirs, adding value to the clients and adding value to both partners as well. So we want to encourage you not to just be reactive, but to focus on becoming proactive and embedded, because that's how you take control of the 54% or the 68%. That's how you make it happen on demand. Good partnerships, what do they look like? Well, Scott, I'd like to pull to you. I know that when you were Findlay & Co, you had a lot of partners, but to us, it's always about the same things, right? You got to have the same ideal clients. You got to make it easy to help each other. You have to have a lot of mutual value to offer each other, and you have to meet regularly.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about before too, you can't be reserved about it. You can't accountant firm, traditionally they are, but you go, oh, I can't really go to that lawyer and say we could do a joint luncheon or something with them because they've got other clients. You just got to put your front foot forward and say, hey, well, I want to do this for the right reasons. And that other partner has got to be in the same situation. So you just, as I say, you just got to do it.
And by the way, you will probably have to take the lead, because so few people do partnerships well that if you take the lead on this, other people will be very happy to follow. And that's what we teach all of our clients to do. And at the end of the day, Scott, that I think a lot of that comes from, well, I don't want to ask something. I don't want to like put myself out there and be uncomfortable. But if you come back to the client's outcomes and how you can deliver more value together, then that has to be put away, because it's not about sending leads, it's about shared outcomes.
Absolutely.
And it's really about, creating something that helps the client. And we have a real responsibility to do that. It's in all of our interests to do that. So talk quickly about how to build partnerships. Partnerships usually happen by accident. So Scott's worked with James 55 times or 3 or 4 times. He starts realizing James is a good bloke. They have a few coffees or a couple of beers or maybe a Scotch, Scott. And they get to know each other and they start sending each other more work. And it's all organic and it's built on trust and it's built around client outcomes and the good feedback you get, which is perfect, which is fine. But we also need to be able to recreate more Jameses and make sure the right Jameses are in place, or Marys. I don't want to be sexist here, by taking control of this situation. Who do you want more of? Who else serves them? What value can you offer to them, both the clients and the partners? The next step really is to make sure that you're outreaching to them. It's a very friendly conversation. They always welcome it, and lead with clarity and value. Always start with the people, obviously, within your network who you're already referring to and from, or the ones that you know. But then you can expand it as you become more ready to do so. And then you want to agree to activate. It's no good just having chats. Chats don't do anything. Once you've agreed, then you have to do something. Quick story, one of my early mentors, Andrew Roberts, business coach, he had been running partnerships for a while, and he got rid of everything else. Once he realized that you can do far more effective by marketing through than to, you stop marketing to. And he was marketing through accountants, lawyers, other things like that. Finally, he put his eye on a big one and he said, I want to get St. George's Bank. So he got an introduction to an introduction to an introduction, took him 3, but he got basically the head of St. George's Bank whole small business branch. He showed that guy, gave that guy a free experience of one of his strategy sessions. The bank had thousands of small business clients who needed exactly what he taught. And they said, we want to put this in front of all of them. Would you be willing to do something for them? Maybe let them be in your workshop? And he said, not only that, but we'll give them a 1 hour free strategy session. And they're like, can you do that? And he's like, yeah. And that's it. They sent out several emails and he got thousands of leads. He was drowning in leads. Actually, it was too much for him. But the point is, they wanted to offer this value to their clients, and what he got out of it was millions of dollars of work. And this is where partnership marketing is so unbelievably powerful. And there's so many ways that you can do it. And Charles, you've got a whole bunch of things in the Boma platform that people can immediately make use of. They don't have to create from scratch, correct?
Yeah, correct. The content library itself is country specific, so Australian specific, New Zealand specific. There's a whole lot of ready to go articles, checklists, other assets you can send out across your different channels. And that's really what we're going to talk about on this slide here, because partnership marketing is really beyond the idea of, a partner sends me a referral or a client and I send one back. It's really treating the whole idea as that marketing channel. And so just the way you think about sort of like your email campaigns or your social or website as a channel, partnerships as a channel. And as Talila said, it gives you access to an audience and you've got that credibility with the audience immediately. And it's a really fantastic way to put yourself in front of them repeatedly. And so what we've got, and by no means are these kind of all the ideas out there, but these are sort of a few practical ideas of what that looks like. So the idea of a webinar like Talila and Scott and I are doing right now. So you co-host with a partner, or maybe it's more than one partner. The audience is invited, shows up, and then even before the first slide unfolds, the leads are a little bit warm. And you can obviously then start to build that relationship, showcase your expertise with them. Another one might be an email campaign. So rather than you sending out an email to a cold list, your partner sends out your content on their behalf to their list. And so therefore it's a warm introduction, not a cold blast. Because obviously they're not going to send out something which is of little use or of low quality. So there's sort of that they're prefacing basically their expertise and allowing you to sort of piggyback off the back of it, and vice versa. Co-created content is another fantastic one, and that's exactly what we're in a way creating today. None of us alone could have done this webinar, or we could have done it, but wouldn't have been as good, especially without Talila's expertise. But off the back of this, we're going to have a recording and we can then share it out across, email, social media, website, etc., things like that. So, together you can make something more powerful than you could have done alone, and then you both get the opportunity to distribute it. Now, those are sort of ideas which you can put into practice, I suppose, in the digital sort of landscape. We're on Zoom now, email, social media, email. But you can also do events. So it might be a client dinner or it might be a workshop. Maybe come together on a guide that which you then send out to a sort of select group of your clients. But the point behind this all is that the data really backs it up. So as Talila said, that B2B acquisition through partners and trusted audiences just converts at a completely different level compared to those either cold or sort of more direct channels. So, those engagement rates, sort of 40, 50, 60%, is kind of what you're expecting. And so again, just to sort of hammer home that point, the reason it converts better is because that the marketing done through a partnership works well because that audience kind of is pre-trusted. So you're not talking to a stranger, you're being introduced by someone they already work with or believe in. So that's a really fundamentally different starting point to if you're just doing it cold. And on the next slide, we can walk through that in a little bit more
Exactly. And I'll
detail.
just add on this one that I remember one business coach who did a partnership with a vet, and there was an elite mastermind thing that they did, and it was 36K per year for the vets to join. And the vet invited 12 other vets that he knew, and they talked to them for 1 hour, and they got not only all 12 of them said yes, but the 13th one, because one brought his son. And so that's a big result for one event that was run through a partnership with people that were known and trusted. And again, look at the strategy of that. The vet knew all of the problems of the vets, and he had a great connection with all these other vets. the coach knew how to solve a lot of business problems, and together they created something that spoke perfectly to that audience, put together a joint offer, and it was very successful. And this brings me back to strategy, right? Strategy is the essential basis. You need to understand who you've got to work with. And a lot of times that comes from what is the client needs. What do clients need or need to know that they don't know? What solutions would complement what you're trying to do with them so that you get a better result and the client is even happier. So who do you work with comes out of that. Why they partner with you also comes out of that, because you've got to give clarity. And then what do you do together? And measuring it. How do you measure it? And once you've got that strategy and clarity, it's really very easy to move forward, because it's like having an architectural plan for a house, or even just a map to get from A to B. You know how you're going to do something, and then you can go ahead and do it. Without strategy, just going around bumbling about and throwing things at the wall and hoping they stick is not a good idea for any form of marketing, and above all for partnerships. I know, Scott, you said yourself that if that was one area that you would have focused on back then, it was to be a bit more strategic, and then execution becomes easier, much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think we've touched on this, Charles, but I think we could talk a little bit more about what's already inside the Boma platform that people can immediately use.
Yeah, and I think the point of Boma really, as a little bit with the back room, as well as basically saving time and energy, because if you're the principal or director, sort of senior accountant of a firm, you don't necessarily want to be spending your time on executing, or at least the sort of day-to-day execution of these sorts of activities once you have the partnership activity agreed and sort of in place. So the point about Boma is that in addition to the idea of the content library, where you have the country-specific content which you can send out, a lot of the other elements to activate those, the webinars, the shared resources, the events, they're all found in Boma. So, talking about email automation. So whether it's you're running a co-hosted webinar or sending out a warm email campaign, Boma can send out the invitations, the reminders, all the follow-ups, and make sure that it goes to all the right people, using the Boma CRM. Same when it goes to making the most of your social channels. So, if you want to post out about an event, whether it's online or offline, you do want to still get it out across your social channels, thinking LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And the benefit of Boma is that you can just log into Boma, the single platform, create the post once, and then it'll send it out across those channels. And the same goes with website content. So if there's ever a piece of content in Boma, whether it's a checklist or an insight on, changes that the ATO or the IRD have made, or sort of changes in legislation, it's all in Boma. You can post it to your website. You can set up lead capture forms, maybe for gated content, or if your partner sends, either via an email or via a sort of a contact us, they can send people to your website. The lead capture form will record their information, and then it's within the Boma CRM for you to nurture. And that's really the key part, is that, once you have these leads from wherever they come from, you don't just want to forget about them. You want to keep that conversation going. And so you might say, okay, well, look, they have come to one webinar or they've opened one email. Maybe now is not quite the right time to go and have that sort of hard sales conversation, but I am going to start to educate them about the services that we offer, or about things that, given their niche, maybe they're retailers or they're professional services, or they're in a specific tech startup space. We've got the information that will benefit them, and the more that we can educate them, the more they will start to understand what we offer, understand that we have great expertise in specific areas, and they won't just sort of land on your site and disappear and sort of have no follow-ups. I mean, because this is the key thing, partnerships create the opportunity, but what makes the opportunity, sort of what takes it and makes it a sort of a golden opportunity, is sort of consistent and repeatable follow-ups and sort of future activations. And that's where a platform like Boma really comes into its own.
Very true. And I would also add that this is a value add that you're offering to your partner. So if you're an accounting firm, for example, and you decide that a lot of your clients need to know how to sell their business better, and you have an event with a broker and a law firm, for example, that focuses on M&A and sales, you having this platform and a lot of the assets and being able to use them is a value add that you offer to those partners, because all of your client, you then have access to all of their clients, they have access to all of yours, you sharing this jointly, but all of their clients benefit from the results, and your system and structure is enabling it through Boma.
Actually, I'll just
But
add one more thing about that. One of the questions we have often seen with accountants when we're sort of having discovery calls or sort of demos, and the reason they turn to Boma is that they're often not sure what what value they have to add. And outside of, the content library, we always have to remind them that, what is bread and butter for accountants? If you are not a specific, if you're not an accountant yourself, all the information and expertise that you can offer is gold to small businesses, to large businesses, to people who are looking at succession planning, retirement, whatever it happens to be. Don't underestimate the value that you have in your head. And then just think about all the people in your community or within your network who would benefit. And so, the idea behind a partnership is that you're just enabling, I suppose, more opportunities to showcase that. And especially the idea of scale. So, you could have one conversation over the phone or a coffee meeting with one person that takes up an hour of your time, or you could do, the same sort of hour and speak to 50 or 60 people via an event or a webinar or something like that.
And to that point, Boma's giving you something that will reduce a lot of the time and effort involved in setting that up. But that said, you still do need to have time, and you do need to have a dedicated person to do this. And I think this is one thing that we have to call out very clearly. It doesn't just do itself. You've got everything that you need there, but you need someone who's dedicated, and you need the time. And I want to go over to Scott there, because they're the experts in giving you your time back, but also because they can talk from personal experience on this.
100%. And I'll just have to say that, the Boma, using all the Boma collateral and what they've got, is just a necessity when you want to sort of go into something like this. Because you talk about platforms, well, for a start, you talk about this first part, Talila, getting someone like to Emple doing your strategy, and then looking at some Boma for your platform, getting all that right with all the good stuff got there, then you got to execute it. And that is where, to be honest, this slide comes into it, is probably where most people will fail, and pretty much is around your people. And I know even in our old accounting firm, it was very similar. Typical accounting firms, as we mentioned before, just do not have the time, and they're too busy. Partners, it gets around tax season and they haven't got time to do anything around partnerships. Then there's got no one owning it. And as I mentioned before, a typical accounting firm again would have their business manager or their practice manager, and who would be responsible for doing their networking and partnerships. But again, they would be too busy involved in probably more administrative duties rather than doing some high value work. And then also you got no follow through, and which is so important for partnerships to really work for you. Not just, oh yeah, tick that off, had a coffee with the lawyer down the road, that's that job done. So, it's so important to have the right people to do that. So, and that's obviously where we come into it. Where you talk about the back room is essentially accounting, but it's also so important around your administration side to get your admin side right, people doing the right thing. Your office manager essentially can be your business manager, and getting more high value work out of them, and get offshoring some of this work. So essentially your doers, I like to call them, the people that will go and get the job done for you in a very efficient way. And straight away you're thinking, oh, I don't need someone full time for that. I know. But then you look what else you can do within your team and within that role, and they can do lots of stuff. So yeah, execution is so important.
It is. And those are the three pillars. Without any one of them, it's not going to work. Just like a car won't drive without four wheels. You need clarity on what you're working to achieve. You need the platform and the assets so that you can achieve it, and you need someone to execute it. And, you know, setting that thing up, like we have a financial planner that's been incredibly successful, actually. Not a financial planner exactly, as a training platform. He teaches people to train nationwide. He gets the vast majority of his clients through partnerships, marketing partnerships with coaching for companies and organizations. And he's just got a really good system. He's got his strategy, his platform and his people, and it just runs very consistently. And setting this up for yourself just makes life easy for you, because you're going to have much less effort, much less cost in marketing, but also you're going to have better quality of clients, and they're going to have to come through consistently. And that's what they create.
And I'll just add one last thing, which actually references that same SMB Navigator report we talked about earlier about the 58% coming from referrals. That same report also found that only around 30% of accounting firms had any real digital presence to back up their referrals that they're already getting. And the point here is that proof has been, it's been proven that if you as a referral come on to look for someone's presence online, and all they can find is a website, and maybe the website hasn't been updated much recently, and then they go and have a look for you on social media, and perhaps at the very least there might be sort of your LinkedIn profile. If you think of the amount of people who grew up as digital natives, sort of born, even this century, but even sort of in the 80s and 90s, they have had social media and sort of all access, uh, you know, digital availability of everything about a company their entire life. So they might get a fantastic referral, but if they come on and see that your last social post was 5 years ago, that might be a bit of a red flag. And we've actually also seen that with research around recruitment for accounting firms. So whether you're wanting a referral for someone to come and work with you, or for someone to come and be your client, there's still a real, I suppose, opportunity. And the research project actually summed it up saying that firms that combine the trusted referrals with a highly visible digital presence will actually capture the widest pool of opportunities. And I think that's what we're sort of wanting to offer you, is that, the ideal customer profile, which you obviously will have in mind, if you can utilize your online digital presence to sort of funnel those people in your direction, will be better than if you just rely on referrals alone, even though they are really powerful in and of themselves.
Exactly. First of all, you can make referrals proactive, and secondly, you can harness that same pool of trust to bring you work through marketing. If you only take one thing from today, it would be this: market through, not to, and think about who do you want more of in terms of the clients, and who already serves them, and what you can offer them, and that becomes the basis. And use all that marketing resource to reach those people through your partners, because you'll have a far, far, far better result. And to make this easier for you, we've got a partnership marketing playbook, which is available. I think that comes at the recording, does it, Charles?
Yeah, we'll send it out to you tomorrow.
Exactly. And it talks about the strategy, it talks about the platform, and it also talks about the execution person, because you need those three things in place for it to operate effectively. As well as that, there's a free partner activation session, which we encourage. There's no point learning something and not putting it into action. I always get surprised by anyone who does that. This is, without any doubt whatsoever, the best way to market your accounting firm, bar nothing. And 45 minutes with Charles and myself will give you clarity on 2 partners worth activating, partners you already have or know, some campaign that you can run together, and how to put that into action. We'll also be touching on who's going to do it on the execution side. So we encourage you, and I think there might be a link that's going into the chat about now for anyone who would like to take that up.
Yeah, I popped into the chat, and it'll also we'll include it in the recording email tomorrow.
Excellent. So I think we can go over to Q&A now. And we've done well on our time. I think we're just about in on time. And the one thing that we'll leave you with as the biggest talking point here is growth comes from a few strong partnerships and a system to run them. You plant your trees, plant your orchard of trees, and you will make it scalable to grow and grow and get rid of the need to go out cold to the market. And you won't be at the mercy of the changing algorithms, the changing SEO. Actually, to this point, I have a client in Melbourne who's an accounting firm. They make a stellar profit. They make an incredible profit. They get 100% of their leads through partners, 100%. And if anything is a testament to how powerful this is, I just think of that firm and go, wow. Their profit margin is also exceptionally good and their churn rate is unbelievable. And it all comes from where they're getting their clients from.
Yeah, that's a good story, Talila, but and also just getting the right clients, the right new clients, isn't it? Because you can waste a lot of time, as we all know, with the wrong clients, and a bad partnership, or the bad people in a partnership is going to give you a bad referral. Like breeds like. So hence by putting some time into having good partnerships done well.
Yes, partners that you share values with, that you share outcomes with, who also have really great clients. You're basically creating, shall we say, a cocoon around yourselves, or a support network around yourselves for both your clients and your partners. Do we have some questions for some people?
I reckon you covered it off so well that we haven't got any questions. Everything's
What? No questions?
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. But anyway, I suppose like anyone who's out there listening can send any questions through to us anyway.
That's
On
we'll be
this
very
topic.
happy to answer them. There are a couple that often come up, like what do I do first, for example. And I think there will be some questions that some people have. Is there something
we've got come in. There was one thing I should focus on. What would it be?
If there was one thing that you should focus on, it would be, I think you would really need to understand who are your ideal clients, who are they, and who else works with them. That alone will give you the people to partner with. From there, you will understand exactly what to do next. Have you worked with many Aussie firms recently? I'm not sure who this is referring to, but I only work with Aussie firms, with the exception of just a few global ones. Or maybe they're talking to you, Charles. I'm not sure.
We work with firms from all over, but yeah, Australia is the majority, over 50% of our business. So we're highly invested in. Scott, you're probably similar.
We're the same. Yep. Yeah, we're invested in Australia as well.
Yeah. Although you are worldwide as well. But thanks for the question, Pete. Affirming starting from scratch, what should they delegate first? Oh, if they're starting from scratch, I think there's two things that we need to know. Our pleasure, Peter. First thing is that it's often the business owners, but also the firm partners who will be the best at going and talking to partners. So they will need to delegate enough of their, shall we say, low value work that they can focus on something high value like this, which means if they're still, I don't know, doing some of the accounting stuff that should be handed to juniors or to offshoring team or things, they should delegate it so they've got time. But as well as that, they should delegate their admin and their marketing stuff to someone who can do it. Yeah, Scott, this
this is sort of down my lane pretty much. I call it the red zone. It's and as owners, certainly owners in a firm, anything in the red zone, which is essentially administration or following up debtors, doing your own zero, doing onboarding, doing AML and anything like that within your firm. 100%, there's your first delegation stuff, and nicely it can go to someone in offshoring. If you're a business manager or an office manager, though, it's the same things, because you want your office manager doing high value work for you, to the firm. And that again is sort of like onboarding, any zero queries. A lot of that stuff, 100% can be delegated, and that's probably the first stuff I'd look at.
And I think the whole point of it is People are getting down in the weeds and not focusing on what they actually need to,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, need to focus on, which is this. Where do you think firms underestimate the effort? Charles, you're going to answer this.
I would say, well, at least from a marketing standpoint, many firms, whether they're using Boma or not, they often start off with a hiss and a rush, a little bit like a sort of joining up the gym after New Year's, and they say, "Great, I'm going to do everything every day, all the time," and then after a week or two, they just get a bit tired, and life creeps in, and they sort of need to sort of turn their attention to everything else that they have going on in their lives, whether professional or personal. So I think consistency is kind of the key thing, is um, the effort doesn't necessarily have to be great, but it just does have to be consistent. And so, having a plan, I think, is also key, whether it's a plan for marketing or a plan for sort of reaching out to sort of develop a partnership. And having, I suppose, if you keep it manageable and realistic, then you're much more likely to stick to it. As long as you do then go back maybe every month or 2 months and give it a bit of an assessment and say, okay, well, we had these goals, these ideas, how well have we held up to them? Do we need to hold ourselves a little bit more accountable? Have we found that actually, with the best will in the world, that person that I delegated it to in the firm doesn't have the time? Do we need to bring someone else on, maybe in a part-time capacity? So I think that's kind of the point is, having that plan and then being consistent in both delivering it, but also holding yourself to account. And then as you go along, especially from a partnership point, perspective, is having regular check-ins with your partner, just to sort of say, okay, it's been 3 months, we've done, maybe one or two events. How are we both feeling it's working? There may be something that we can improve, or maybe it's just one side is thinking that they have an idea on something they'd like to change. So, yeah, having that consistency is key. And again, if you're not able to do it yourself, that's fine. If you're the principal of a firm, but there does need to be someone within your firm whose role it is, day in,
Mm.
day out, week in, week out, to do, to deliver on that, partnership goal, the marketing goal, and so on. That would be my
And
take.
that's why we cover that in the partnership activation session, because it is important that you've got real clarity on what are the outcomes, reverse engineer your outcomes, and then what's the lowest hanging fruit, and then who's going to do it, and just get it done. That goes to the next question: what's a realistic number of partners to be managing? A good way of answering that would be, what's the number of clients that you want on board? I think if you only need one St. George's Bank to flood your business, so it's a little bit about reverse engineering. It's one of the things we actually do. Reverse engineering who you've got in your network, who are referrers and who you refer to, what you can reasonably expect from that, and then just choosing the ones that will fulfill that, because we don't want to be talk. We don't need to deal with hundreds of partners. Often 5 to 7 really strong partners will change your life. And just having constant relationships with those and supporting your clients' outcomes, it's all that many firms need. And if they're growing, obviously, they'll add more. But this is the thing, you're planting trees. You don't, unless you eat apples for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you intend to create apple fruit factories all over the world, there's only so many apples you need. So you plant your trees, you get your apples, and you just look after those trees.
I
Mm.
agree, because again, you only got so much bandwidth within your firm, as we
Yes.
talked about. So you got to make it realistic. Too many, it's just going to push you.
Exactly. And it's usually the senior partners, the owners of the business, the
Yeah.
principals who create the partnerships, but then it's the execution support resources that manage those and keep the rhythm going and make sure that all the different activities are operational.
Mm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I can see we've already got one person has asked for an activation session, so that's fantastic.
Right.
Do keep an eye out for that email tomorrow afternoon. That will again have that link both to the session and also the value add download that Talila mentioned earlier.
Yes, I think everyone will gain value from that. And look after your partners, treat them with respect, send them gifts, give them updates on how the clients they send you are going, and just lean into that ecosystem, because the future is trust. one local famous Australian firm, I'm trying to remember their name, said we're living in a trust recession. So there's never been a better time to focus on partnerships as now.
Exactly.
That was valuable.
100%. Good. So I think that's a wrap, team.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thanks everyone for attending. And as for the last few sessions of this webinar series, we will send you out a reminder the day before and the day of the next session. And just Talila, fantastic to have you on board. Just huge amount of insight for Scott and I, and hopefully for everyone listening today.
My great pleasure. It's an honour to be working with both of you. I think you both added immense value to clients. And I only just touched the surface. I could have told you 600 more stories about what partnerships achieve. And again, think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to move a table from one room to the next, and you're trying to do that all by yourself. That's like marketing on silo. Imagine now that you've got 3 other people to pick up the other sides of the table and you're all moving it to the next room. How easy is that? That's what marketing partnerships do. And get those people to help you move the table. That's my final piece of advice. So thank you.
Thanks everyone. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.